Without further ado, I guess, because my mic was off and or I was on and you guys could hear me like the whole time. It's awesome. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fader and Friends. This is now episode number 3, where I've had Aiden Scott, we've had 916 Junglist, Mr. Billy Lane on the last 2 episodes. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're going to start the show in just a couple minutes. We got Joshua Carl coming on with us. We're really looking forward to sitting down and kind of talking with him about a lot of things. He's lived a pretty interesting life, so I want to talk to him. We're going to kind of nerd out about this movie as well as and get to know him a little bit better. So that's kind of the goal with everything. Is each week I'm going to give you guys some different people in my life that I know, either virtually or that I've friends or family that I've made along the way. And then we're going to bring them on. We're going to ask them some questions, nothing too crazy, but we definitely want to have some fun stories be told and things like that. Then we're going to kind of segue it into talking about one of their favorite movies. And that way we could we all love movies. We all love watching films and that kind of stuff. So it's always a good thing I love talking shop about movies and music and all that good stuff. So it's a fun creative outlet for me that you guys are on par to enjoy. And so thank you guys so much. We're just gonna, hey, everybody in the chat, how are you? This is a live taped podcast, as you can see by my stumbling and everything else. So if you guys are enjoy this sort of craziness, make sure you guys follow on all the channels. Our podcast is streaming and is available on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. It's on wherever you can get your podcast for the most part. We do put up the video replays on YouTube. All the other 2 episodes that we've shot so far are on the podcast or on the YouTube channel as well. So we're going to make sure you guys check that out if you want to. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all the things that you need to do with the socials. That way we can kind of keep growing this channel and this podcast and this broadcast and everything else. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start this. We're going to start our podcast and introduce our guest for tonight. It's Joshua Carl. Here he is.
Hello.
Well, hello there, sir.
I didn't see you come in.
Oh really? I've completely lost my train of thought because I watched you go like this. You're like...
It hit me last minute. I was like, I can't just sit here. I got to do something. Oh, man. How's things?
Good, man. How are you?
Well, as good as you can be, all things considered.
For sure. You have a fan or a heater on in there?
Do you get some fanage?
I got some. I mean, I'm sure I get some too. So,
I can turn it off if you give me a second.
Yeah. Right. Now we can really exit the show and then come back in. It's perfect. Hey, why don't we just go ahead and start over? Because this will be fun, right? Here we go. Let's just go to we're gonna go back to the starting screen and everything. We're gonna we're gonna have him ready to go. We're going take 2, guys. Ready? Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fader and Friends. Thank you guys so much for being here. My name's your DJ Darth Fader, your host. Today is episode 3. We've got my homie DJ Joshua Carl. He's from Massachusetts. And today we're going to be talking about What We Do in the Shadows. It's a great movie. I'm looking really forward to talking with Joshua Carl about some earlier life experiences. He's lived a crazy life that I know of, and I'm really excited to get to learn more. In this episode, and this podcast really is what we're doing. I have people that are kind of scattered throughout the globe that I've met either virtually in my life or at some point along the crazy life that I've led so far. I want them to come on the show, tell us some great stories about where they come from, the things that they enjoy, some of their favorite things, and then we kind of parlay that into a movie podcast because we end up talking about one of their favorite movies. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to bring Joshua Carl on. Thank you guys so much for being with us. If you guys are enjoying the podcast and you want to be a part of the live experience, later on in the chat, we're going to throw a link down in the chat that you'll be able to join the live roundtable with us. So you guys can come on, blast us for what we missed, show us what your favorite stuff is, in this particular movie. Be part of this community, because without you, we're just, two guys talking on the internet, which is cool. But we love the people that we talk to as well. We're going to bring out Joshua Carl now, and let's go. Here he is.
Hello. Friends.
Hello there, sir.
I didn't hear you come in. I'm sorry. I was reading my new copy of Alter Ego featuring Captain Marvel and enjoying some Jameson.
Oh, wow.
Take two is always better.
Take two. Yeah, this is take two, because we completely botched that. We completely botched take one.
Oh, raid. Look at that.
Oh, wow. Right off the rip. Hey, guys. So, yeah, we just got a raid. Take three? No, let's do it. We're doing it live. No use for anger. Thank you so much for the raid. We are live streaming this on Twitch. So if you guys want to be a part of the podcast, Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right on this Twitch channel here, DJ Darth Vader. This is how we do it. Thank you guys so much. How are you today, sir?
I'm good.
What were you reading?
This comic, actually not a comic. It's a super nerdy. Yeah, it's just super nerdy stuff. It's like a recap of all things from the Fawcett era comic books.
You know what I thought? Do you know what, like, knowing you, what I thought that said? I thought it said Harris Heller on it.
No. Somebody says echoing. You're echoing when I'm on. You got that? You got it covered?
You know what? I can probably do... We'll have to figure that out.
Aaron, no. So you gotta mute yourself on StreamYard, maybe? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't know that program at all.
Are you monitoring somewhere on your end?
Nope, just my headphones. And they're snug.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it should be me. This is fun.
Gremlins, did I not tell you yesterday? I said it. I passed them your way.
So they can hear me echo back, because I can hear it too. So I'm not sure exactly what that is. It's only me, right? Yeah. I can hear myself too.
It's bizarre.
So why don't you do this? Why don't you give us a quick little backstory about yourself, and then I'm going to go ahead and see if I can tinker around a little bit with that, all right?
Sure.
Shoot.
I was born and raised the son of a poor Filipino merchant. Nope, that's not my story. Sorry. Let me start over. I was born up here in Boston. I've pretty much been here my whole life. Went to Silver Lake Regional High School, where I played football and basketball and baseball. After that, joined the Army Reserves. But because I went to be a medic, I was actually away for a few years in medic school. Got out of that, went to college. When I got to college, I walked onto the football and baseball team, and my baseball team used to throw some really good parties, like people-wise, not music-wise. And that's sort of what got me started in DJing. There was no DJ really at Fitchburg State except for the guy that played at the nightclub. So I had one turntable, and then I started collecting records. And then I got out of college, and what happened in college during that time is not for this podcast. Maybe I'll start a Patreon. But then moving on, I got a job as a bouncer at the Purple Shamrock in Boston. Now, for those that don't know, the Purple Shamrock is the Boston Irish version of the Double Deuce. They clean up the eyeballs at the end of the night with a broom. And I'm not a big guy. And I'm not even a scrappy guy. I think I've been in 3 fights in my entire life. But what I learned in that situation is that a good manager hires different sorts of bouncers. He has the enforcers, he has the pit bull. I was the guy that could talk to people, so I would diffuse fights often by either being funny or, just engaging people. So that was sort of my role. One night the DJ was like, "Yo, I heard you DJ'd in college. You still into it?" And I was like, "A little bit, not really. I don't, I never thought of doing it as a gig." And he's like, "Well, I'm out of town next weekend. I'll leave all my records here. I'll leave my mixer here. I can't find anybody to cover." And so my first ever DJ gig was a gig. And the owner just happened to be there that night, and I was playing some weird shit that he liked, and he offered me the other night. So my first night ever DJing, I got offered a residency. Know this, I was absolute flipping garbage. Like, I look back at that night, and you know how it is the first night you DJ? You're like, "Yes, I killed it. I was amazing." And then you look back and you're just like, "Oh my God, I didn't even know that mixing was a thing. I just thought I was just throwing records willy-nilly." But yeah, so that's kind of how I got started, and it hasn't stopped. If you guys probably know this a little bit about me. Anything I dive into, I tend to kind of seclude myself from everything else and just dive in head first and learn everything I can. And I'm really not satisfied until I've got to a point where I feel like I've not mastered it, but really have a good hold of it. So that's what I did with DJing. Locked myself in my basement, turned my basement into like a nightclub, and did nothing but DJ and watch, those like turntablist tips and tricks put out by DMC, and watch all the battles and try to figure out how they do those cuts and stuff. So,
how's that now? Has that been something that has always been that you've focused on one thing?
Yeah,
been able to deep dive into it.
It's this weird ADD thing, man. Like, I can't quite explain it. Like, I have ADD, but when my ADD isn't firing on all cylinders, I'm laser focused. Like, it's sort of like when I was in school, I would put off assignments until a day or two before and then just focus on it, and nothing else in the world mattered. I would laser focus and do what I had to do. And that's just part of my personality, I guess.
Now, do you come from like a big family, or are you an only child? Like, what's that?
Nope. My parents I was sort of birthed out of like the Vietnam era. My parents got divorced when I was 2. My mother moved to Vegas a couple years ago. My dad still lives down the Cape. I have a sister who lives in San Diego, and my mother got remarried once when I was in my teens, and that relationship brought along 2 older siblings, a 20-some-odd-year-old half-brother and half-sister, who actually, he was one of the reasons why I went in the Army, because he went in as a MP, military police, went to Germany, and he came back with medieval weapons, things I had only seen in Dungeons and Dragons. And he came back with a double-edged battle axe, throwing stars, a 2-handed 6-foot bastard sword, and I'm just like, oh, I gotta go in the Army. So that was it. No, that wasn't the sole reason, but that was a big part of it. And when you're like young and impressionable, all I know is that he was an MP. He got to shoot guns. He came back with cool weapons from Dungeons and Dragons, and that just sort of rolled. And the funny thing is, I actually enlisted during Desert Storm. So
yeah, I want to get into this. I want to talk to you about this stuff. So that's why I was wondering. I was going to ask you like what made you kind of enlist, when, like, about what time that was. And
it was the early 90s. I was a junior.
Wait, stop. Time out.
Sure.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Now continue.
My pleasure. Hey, Decade, how we doing, man? Sorry, I just want to acknowledge the chat just a little. I know the people listening to this back, unless you edit it out, will be like, God damn, but maybe they'll listen back and go, I need to listen to this on Thursday nights.
Right. Come live, because you may get a shout out from the guy sitting next to me.
That's right. Hell yeah. So yeah, I was a junior in high school, and it was close to the end of the year, and I started mixing it up with the recruiters. Took the ASVAB, which is like their version of the SATs, and it's not a test whether you pass or fail. It sort of like measures your skills in different regions, and if you get,
if you're going to be a grunt, or if you're going to like maybe do something with your life.
Exactly. So like the higher you score, the more jobs open up. I actually did really, really well, and they were like, you have your run of the board or whatever you want to do, which was funny because like in middle school, I thought I was never going to finish. Like they were talking about kicking me out, keeping me back, between being hyperactive and like I said, having ADD and focus, the tonic-clonic sort of way that behaves is one day I don't do homework for a month and I'm ready to get kicked out of school. The next day I'm like valedictorian. So it was an interesting time. Fast forward, senior year rolls around. Well, actually, my mother had to sign off for me to enlist. That was sort of a big pivotal point. Like she's like, "We're in the middle of a war," and I'm like, "I'm not going anywhere." So I enlisted as a medic with a specialty in orthopedics.
Now, did you have any prior any kind of experience with that, or is that something that just the reserves and the Army just gave you, like, here, this is what you're going to learn?
No, I picked, aside from MASH, I knew nothing of it. My dad was in Vietnam in 5th Mechanized Infantry, which was like basically rolling in tanks. And he was actually a radio operator, which was one of the jobs that generally meant you weren't coming home. He carried a big radio on his back with like a 30-foot antenna. And he has his own baggage from that situation. I knew I didn't want to do that, but they came at me and they're like, here's your list, and it starts with like the better ones, but they're also of a greater commitment. So the first job that they offered me was Russian interrogator, which means 2 years of Russian, 2 years committed to being full-time. And then when you get out, obviously you go to the FBI or something like that. Being the kid I was, I didn't think too fondly of the police or any of those people on that side of the fence. So I'm like, it's just too ironic if I ever did something like that. And two, I'm just way too much of a clown. Like, I feel like that situation demands you to be serious. And if there's anything that I do when somebody's like, you need to be serious, that's just like flipping on the Jim Carrey switch. I'm like, okay, like it's not going to happen. Just not, it's not in my DNA. When I saw medic, I was like, this is a way for me to serve, but not take lives. And that's an actual thought I had when I saw it. I'm like, I can help. I can be part of the battle, but I won't be killing people unless I actually have to.
Did you ever have to?
No. I've been shot at. I've had mortars fired at me. I've had rockets fired at me, but I've never fired my weapon back. There's been a few times when I was in Iraq, I was on guard duty, and there's these things called rules of engagement. You've probably heard things like that. It's constantly changing. Every day you go to guard duty, they're like, here's the ROI for the day. It's like no warning shots. Then 3 weeks later, they're like, okay, the first move is now warning shot. Depending on what's going on in country, it defines how you act when you're on guard duty.
Wow.
I never had to. There's a few times where like it's 4 a.m, I'm in this little hut in the middle of Mosul, Iraq, and I just see like a cigarette, coming at me because that's all you can see because it's pitch black. And the pucker factor when that happens, when you're like your boys, because when you do guard duty, you do 2 of you, and everybody's like one on, one off. So you sleep, I stay awake. You sleep, I stay awake. He's sleeping, and I'm just like, am I going to have to shoot somebody? I hope not. And of course they get closer and then you realize, they're a U.S. soldier or they're spec ops or, Rangers, because Rangers grow beards and shit like that over there. So
try to blend and everything.
Yeah. So, and they also tend to lean to, dude, you got the look. If you put you in the uniform, you would look like spec ops. You got that.
I've had, I haven't had direct military training, but my stepfather growing up was in the Army and we got deployed overseas, and I got to fire guns and hang out with like a lot of the paratroopers, the red beret wearing guys. And like, I learned a ton of stuff that like I probably shouldn't let anyone in on that I know. What year was that? What year were you over there?
I was deployed in 05, 06, and a little bit of, 05, the end of 05, a little bit of 06, and 07. And the reason why it was so long is being a medical unit, I was deployed with a hospital, much like MASH. We all had to get our certifications up to date, which means like as a medic, I hadn't practiced as an EMT in forever. So they're like, you know what? We're just going to send you back through medic school again at 30 years old. So I had to basically, while everybody in my unit was staging up in Wisconsin, Did you lose me?
Oh, sorry.
Everybody,
I'm trying to kick myself out.
while I was staging up in Wisconsin, the rest of my unit was staging Wisconsin, getting ready to go to Iraq, a handful of us, they're like, go down to Fort Sam in San Antonio, Texas. You're going to take medic training all over again like you've never taken it. So I had to basically go to combat medic school in 2005. And basically, if you've never been to a military school, it's kind of perfect for somebody like me because it's 8 to 10 hours a day, every day a week. And you basically do what most people do in 2 years in like 2 months. So I deployed.
Ultimate, like, crash course.
Yeah, and it's the cool thing about it is it's actually your certified EMT when you get out. So I could have pursued that. I ended up pursuing a job with Mass General instead because of my orthopedic adaptation identifier. But when I got over there, man, it was kind of. I say it's exactly what you think it is, but given how many different people have different stories or visions of what it's like over there, it's from my perspective, it was a lot different. When I talk to people about PTSD, the PTSD that I have is a lot different than somebody who was, firing weapons or snipers or even just grunts. Yeah, or even just even if you never did, if you're in that environment and you're clearing houses with MPs and stuff like that, like there's this, again, I say pucker factor because any minute shit can go sideways, especially with IEDs. Sure. Over there in the hospital, it was a constant case of get everything ready and wait for shit to go sideways. And that's pretty much exactly what happened every single time.
So you lived in like a state of anxiety pretty much like the whole time?
Pretty much the entire time. So my deployment was actually split in half. So we started out in Mosul, which is up north, which is a lot sort of like Massachusetts. We actually got snow there. It got down to like maybe 40, 50 degrees once in a while. But that area, we were in a town with a wall. And the insurgents would actually fire and lob grenades into the base constantly. They didn't care. There's Geneva Conventions. I don't think one group has followed Geneva Conventions ideologies since it was invented. They look at the big medical cross as a target. So they were constantly trying to hit the hospital. And ironically, our hospital was actually the hospital for the town too. So I actually made a ton of friends with actual people from Iraq, like Iraqi people that would come in with broken bones and injuries and sports injuries, tons of kids. They would come in and they'd get to know me. They'd see me every couple of weeks, because I'd have to take their cast off and check their fracture healing and put them back in a cast and send them along their way. Cool. And while this is all going on, these, insurgents are just like, firing rockets at us and sniping our pilots and all kinds of crazy stuff. So somebody has a so Roger, Army medic gets EMTB training. You actually get, I have it somewhere over there, the actual EMT badge. And then you go to the second part, which is like it's kind of like the rite of passage. You have to put an IV in your friend in the back of a blacked out truck while that truck is driving down a bumpy ass dirt road. So if you've ever had somebody try to start an IV on you, like in the nice comfort of a doctor's office,
and they suck.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I can't get it. Let me get somebody else. It's just like, no. If you go to the hospital and somebody's got like an army pin on and they go to take your blood or something, just know they're probably going to do a good job. Because our training was pretty intense. There was like a virtual sort of war zone that they would set up in a building because war turned from being out in the fields of Germany or in the jungles of Vietnam to being in these concrete cities. So you and four guys would kick in a door and you'd rush in and they'd be like, there's 7 casualties, maybe 3 or 4 insurgents and 2 or 3 friendlies. Get through this building, save who you can, take out the bad guys and meet us on the other side. And it was fun because it's not real, but they make it real. There's strobe lights all over the place. There's huge speakers blaring like Iraqi, like music and chants and stuff. And they fill the room with smoke so you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And then every once in a while, if they want to really mess with you, they'll throw CS gas in there. You have to pop off your mask and put your mask on. I don't know if anybody's ever actually had CS gas in their system. It ruined your day. Like you're out of it for a good 2 hours. It's horrible. So, decade, I did not do any military parties just because that was the last thing. They suggested it when we did our reunion a handful of years ago, and I'm like, guys, I don't want to be the guy at the reunion working. I want to talk to everybody. So.
See, that I did the exact opposite of that. My 10-year high school reunion is like my 20-year. Oh God, I'm fucking old. My 10-year high school reunion came, and they were like, "We may need something." I'm like, "I'll come DJ it. You can pay me." So I'll go up there and get paid to hang out with all of you that I don't talk to anymore. That's fine.
I think my high school reunion, I would have DJ'd it too, because there's that little element of back up. I'm way cooler than I used to be in high school. That's fine. That's totally fine. What were you like in high school? Were you like, dude, leave me alone, or were you like? No, I played 3 sports, so I was kind of a jock, but I did not really roll with the jock crowd. I was kind of too weird for that. In the sense that like me and my friends all kind of fancied ourselves really funny. Some of us took it way too far. Some of us maybe not far enough. I kind of found myself in the middle, just funny enough to not get in trouble, but funny enough to make people laugh, to the point where I actually considered at one point, like, I wonder if there's a future in this. And my writing teacher, senior year, actually pulled me aside and was like, have you considered going to school next year for writing? And I'm like, no, because I fucking hate it. I'm like, well, but it's the same thing. When I sit down, I can write some stuff. I have a pretty good imagination, and I had written a few stories, because the writing class was like an advanced class. Like, you could only get it if you were like in this certain English class, and then you could elect that. And what's kind of funny, a lot of people don't know this, I went to a regular / Votech school. So I actually went to school for culinary arts. And
really?
I graduated with a certificate in culinary arts. But I don't want to say I hated writing. That was kind of a inaccurate phrase. I disliked the process, but I liked the end result. So like when I would write, it was super stressful. And then once I was done, I'm like, that was kind of worth it. To watch somebody read something I wrote and their eyes light up and, the emotion in certain parts, I was like, all right, this is a cool thing. And ironically, it's not terribly different than DJing. You know what I mean? A lot of us do it to see the reactions, or if we can take people. Yeah.
Right. So your like imagination and that kind of writing for story and things like that, is that something that you kind of learned or discovered at a young age? Well, maybe with comics, because I know you're a huge comic book fan.
Yeah, so it was in part, I grew up in Plimpton, which, if you don't know, is the hometown of Deborah Sampson. Deborah Sampson. If you don't know, does anybody in the chat know who Deborah Sampson is?
I want to talk to Sampson. Oh, that's a different movie.
Deborah Sampson was the Revolutionary War's version of Joan of Arc. She was a woman who shaved her head and dressed like a man to fight for her country, and her house was like 7 houses away from mine. So if that paints,
so we're talking like an American version of Mulan. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, way back in the late 1600s, or 1700s, whenever that shit happened. All right, react. Yeah. So I grew up in Plimpton. So it is one of those towns where the elect officials are like, we don't want anything. We want this to stay Pleasantville. So in my town, it was like hunting, fishing, camping, riding dirt bikes, riding bikes, baseball. And that was it. There was no stores to go to, no nothing. We didn't even have like a pizza shop. We had one center of town. It was super tiny. So I had a lot of time to myself as a kid. My sister, who was like 5 years younger than me, we palled around, but she was into really like exactly what you think like a 7 or 8 year old girl would be into: Barbies, cooking sets, and Holly Hobby, whatever. Might be dating myself there. So I had a shit ton of Legos, and even when I was a kid, I would build these things out of Legos, and my mother would be like, "Don't break this one. Leave it. I want to show it to people." And it was, for me, it was nothing spectacular. I never built what came in the Legos package. Ever.
Same.
And when I see people that do build it and then like glue it and leave it as is, I'm like, friggin', Nazi? Like, why would you do such a thing?
Like, you're stifling yourself.
I literally had this big box my stepdad made with just endless Legos, and I would just sit there for hours on hours just building weird shit. And I'd build something like, Mom, check this out. She's like, don't break it. Leave it like that. I want to show it to people. And I'm like, am I going to get put in a home now? Like, is this like, you know how they're like, oh, you know, if you're a kid and you're like burning ants with a magnifying glass and killing small animals, then, you know, that's fine.
Let's go back to that, because I tried to steer you in the direction of the comic book stuff a little bit.
I'm saving it.
Because you're a huge comic book fan.
Yeah.
And there's a thunderbolt in your background and everything of that nature. When did comic books kind of come into your ether, like deep in your core? When did that start?
When I was a little kid, my first like, oh my God, what is this? Was a little bit of Superman 1 and 2, as well as the Shazam TV show that was when I was watching Saturday morning cartoons as a kid. I would stay and watch Shazam, because that would come on at like 1:30. So like the good cartoons were on from like 8:30 to like 10:30, and then you started getting like maybe the weird cartoons or Land of the Lost and, you know, like the live action stuff. But
Gotcha.
then if you sat and waited through that, I'd get Shazam. So I'd always watch Shazam, and that's where my love for that character was birthed. But then again, my half brother was really into comics and music. He was like 20 at the time. So, and I was, you know, under 10, and he would come back and I'd see him with a stack of comics, and he was really into Conan. And I was more enamored with the covers. Like, I didn't really read them because I'm lazy, but I'd just be like, wow, I'm like, these covers are insane. Like, the artwork was insane. It was a little bit towards heavy metal. If you guys know what heavy metal is, it was sort of like an adult comic, which often would have completely disproportionate women drawn and just like next to nothing. Conan was pretty close to that, but not quite. But he'd come home with like that, and I'd be like, wow, look at this. And then he really liked X-Men. And that put me onto X-Men. And then as I got older, I started collecting baseball cards, like I think every kid did in that little window of time.
Oh, sure. I totally did that. Tops and X-Men was my life.
So at this point in time, I have a little pet.
Who's your favorite X-Men?
You know, I have to say Wolverine.
All right.
Just because, you know, I hated that he's jumped the shark and he's become this other character now. But growing up, he was who I read for. You know, it was the tenacity, the cool outfit, the brown and yellow. You know, I didn't really care for the blue and yellow. As much as I love Chris Claremont, I'm a brown and yellow Wolverine guy. I
actually have a friend of mine who's one of my college professors who actually worked for Marvel at a time. So like I'm gonna try to reach out to him, have him come on the show, because I'd love for him to talk like some of that stuff, because he's a super big comic book nerd too. Mine was Gambit, by the way, but yeah, please go on.
Dude, Gambit's dope.
Gambit. Gambit's my man.
Gambit's dope, man. He I was actually gonna do a little quick poll for you here.
Do it.
Yeah, man. Oh.
Let's see it. Oh, Deadpool versus Gambit.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I was just having a look at this the other day.
So dope.
I actually really like Gambit too. When I thought Ryan Reynolds and what's his name? The guy that was going to play Gambit.
Channing Tatum.
I was kind of shocked. I like the kid that played him in that movie.
Yes. I do too.
He was kind of spot on. He looked like him.
Yeah.
He was good looking, but not too good looking.
The movie like shit.
Yeah, it was
like,
a horrible writing.
He was a good casting for that. I would have loved to have seen him like go further with that.
Yeah, definitely. And then he did
like Cameron Poe. Maybe
he did that not Ghost of Mars, John of Mars or whatever. That other movie he did. That I felt bad. I'm like, this guy's a pretty good actor. Like it's unfortunate he's just picking the wrong. Well, he's not even picking the wrong roles. He's getting shit writing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I when I was going to the card store, it was also a comic store, and I didn't really like, all my friends were into cards, not really comics. And this is around like the 89 Upper Deck Griffey, you know, and all that era. So we're all buying Upper Deck cards and all these other, just trying to get those inserts.
Aluminum foil, right?
Yeah, dude, and then, you know, Taylor Kitsch. Thank you.
Taylor Kitsch.
Yes.
There's our
Klisch,
there's our connection right there,
There's
Mr.
it.
Barbaro.
Well done, sir.
That's Chris Barbaro. We're gonna have him
Chris.
on the show too.
I lost my train of thought.
You're in the store.
Oh, comp store. So we're buying cards, and I wasn't gonna be the dude that buys comic books when all my friends are buying cards and then trading cards. Fun fact: years later, it was found out that comic book store was using a steamer to open up the Topps packs, take out all the good ones, fill it with bad ones, and then resealing it. They didn't do it with the foil ones because you couldn't do it with the foil ones. But the Topps, they were doing that.
Like the little plasticky ones.
Yeah, like the wax paper.
The god awful chewing gum in there.
Yeah. So
I still ate it anyway.
One of my friends kind of comes out. I guess that's a thing. He comes out and he's like, "I'm gonna go look at some comics," and I'm like, "You are?" He's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, I'll come with you. And we went over and we spent money on comics, and we're driving home, and the first thing we figured out was baseball cards are a lot easier to carry in the bag than comic books when you're on a pedal bike.
Oh, sure.
And so everything I bought for those first 2 years, I wish I knew about backboards in plastic bags, because and I bought some good comics. In retrospect, I knew some of the comics I bought. And one of the ones I bought was the whole Star Wars Dark Forces or whatever it is.
Yep.
I bought that whole series. It's all junk. It's all, it's maybe 2 shades away from an overused porn mag. Just pages are stuck together. Print is on the other page. Everything's all jacked up.
I mean, you can do what you want to do in your own free time. So
it is Star Wars. So.
That's true.
So yeah, that's how comic books started for me, and I flip. It just most like comics do. So a lot of the writers, like Jim Lee, was with DC and Marvel. He's the head of DC now, but when he was with Marvel, I was really liking what he did over there, and I really liked quite a few writers that have gone back and forth between the two. Like my favorite artist right now is Tyler Kirkham, who is relatively unknown, relatively small, and relatively new, but he's a beast. I think everybody defaults to Alex Ross, rightfully so, but he's sort of in another tier of artists. So right now I'm on DC. 90s, early 2000s, it was all Marvel. I wouldn't even touch a DC book. Like everybody else, I laughed at Aquaman at every chance I had.
So what kind of music, what kind of movies and stuff were you getting kind of into with, around that time for you?
Headphones.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Hold on.
Yeah.
God damn it.
This is why it's live, people.
V-Mata. Gotta love that. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. Yeah. I think I was in the same thing everybody was into back then. It was when you're that age, you sort of like follow the trends. You don't want to be... I say all the time on my stream that I was just such a late adapter to like Morrissey and The Cure and even Depeche Mode a little bit, because when I was in the late 80s, early 90s, nobody was listening to that. Everybody was listening to rap. And the kids that weren't listening to rap were the crunchy kids that were listening to like classic rock. Now, my dad really listened to a lot of classic rock and a lot of like proper blues. So my time spent with my dad was listening to that stuff, where I really got to know. We listened to like every Sunday morning they had like the Beatles show, and we'd listen to nothing but the Beatles for 2 hours on Sunday. And then it would go into like I said, proper blues music. And my mother would listen to pop. So it was like Anita Baker and Whitney Houston and the Pointer Sisters and stuff like that. Meanwhile, I have a massive Public Enemy poster on my wall, lines in my head. I got hammer pants with patent leather shoes.
Is there photos of that somewhere?
I don't think there is.
I'll pay good money. Nancy, your wife, if she's listening, I will pay good money for you to dig in any kind of photo albums anywhere to find that.
I don't think there are, because you remember, like, that wasn't the time of even disposable cameras.
I barely have any pictures of me growing up.
Yeah, no,
barely any. I've moved so many times that I have like maybe 2 boxes of my whole life, and that's it. So, did you go to the movies like a lot as a kid, or were you like a Blockbuster kind of kid, or like what?
I did the Blockbuster thing. We had a small one, not a real Blockbuster. Before Blockbuster took over, we had a small. I think it was actually called the Movie Stop. And my parents would let me go get what I wanted. My sister would get what she wanted. Then my stepdad, the wizard that he was, went out and bought a second VCR. And then we started
Pirating.
Pirating the shit out of everything. But it wasn't for distribution. It's kind of like Twitch. It was kind of like, it's not for distribution, it's for entertainment.
It's kind of like Twitch. Yeah. Double VCR, folks. Kind of like Twitch.
So it was a combination of doing that. And then the other thing I did a lot of, and I never really thought about it until just now, was just record MTV and BET constantly.
Yes, I did too. Ushered My Way video. I recorded that. I love that. I love that song. I don't care. I don't care who knows it.
Come at me, labels.
Yeah, the video I don't have it anymore, but I loved it. When you go to the movie, you have any like since you're like the ADD, but also the focus when you're going to the movies, do you have like a specific place that you have to sit, a specific snack that you have to have, like that kind of stuff, If
Nancy's watching, she might chime in. I always get the best seat, and yeah. I'm thankful that my family is like, let him have it. Let him have his damn seat.
Yeah.
Now that you can pick seats ahead of time, it's amazing. We spend more on food than we do the tickets generally when we all go.
Sure.
I love the theater experience, especially now that the theaters have gotten. There's no such thing as a bad theater anymore. They're all pretty good. Like, you might end up with a small screen, but for the most part, you're not going to see a booty theater anymore. But I remember there's a couple memories I have, distinct memories, standing in line for Batman '89 for like 2.5 hours and being awesome. the last, me and my friends were the last 3 people that got into the showing, and 2 of us sat together and then the other person had to sit somewhere else. And just being blown away by that movie. And as a comic book fan, I loved it, but it was kind of funny because by the time the second one came out, I had moved to comic book elitism, where I was like, man, I'm not even going to see that trash. Because, he's not the Dark Knight. It's Tim Burton. It's Michael Keaton, blah, blah, blah. And there's something it's just like music,
now, how do you feel about those movies?
Now the second one is one of my favorites.
Out of it. Exactly.
It's one of my favorites.
Yes.
And it's just like music. Like, you come in, like dance music, you come in, listen to the Venga Boys. But by the time 3 years is up, you're listening to like Bedrock Classic Collection, and everything is trash. I think Billy actually said it the other day. Like, you judge because you've been in this realm for so long, you feel like you know the difference between good and bad.
You are the authority on it, right?
Yeah, and it's like, I'm not. You're not gonna watch that crap, are you? Here, Dark Knight. Read this. This is all you need.
So do you feel like you're a good authority on like what's good and what's like as far as like that kind of stuff goes?
Not at all. Not even look at the movie I picked, dude. I was gonna, full disclosure, I was gonna pick Goonies because it's arguably it's one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
But in true Joshua Carl fashion, I like to go left. I like to either come with a curveball, and I like to a deep cut or something. And this is something I genuinely do. I like to bring things to the table that I feel maybe people don't know about, and maybe they should. You know what I mean? Like this particular movie, people who have seen it and have had the patience, because a lot of people watch it once and they're like, meh. But once you watch it a few times, it's got like a cult following. It's got like this weird status in the movie realm. So that's kind of why I picked this one. But it's completely indicative of how I am with everything. Like,
did you happen to see this movie in theater, or was it something that you got like digitally, or did you pirate it? Because from what I'm, in watching the show and then following up on it, it was one of the most pirated movies in the year, 2015, like after it came out.
Because it was, so they made the movie originally in 2005, and you can watch that on YouTube, and it's funny. It's got some of the same jokes, but it's definitely super, super, super low budget. We could probably, given the gear we have, we could probably make that movie right now. They tried to sell it for 10 years and it finally got picked up. But I stumbled across it late on a movie channel. It might even been IFC or something, like maybe a year or two after.
So like on television.
Yeah. But it wasn't cut. I remember it was, like the full version, but IFC does that sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, this is almost like A Mighty Wind or Dog Show or Spinal Tap.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Like
it's
a Christopher Guest
like a Christopher Guest, that family of things.
Gotcha.
And I love those movies, all of them. So it had never been done before. Like, it was completely fresh and original. Because, like, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is kind of like, Scary Movie. You know what I mean? Like, when my knee-jerk reaction was like, it's a comedy on the trope of vampires. It's been done. You know what I mean? But then I watched it the second time, and I just fell in love with the whole thing. And Taika Waititi is just, he's slow. Between then and now, he's slowly become like one of my favorite people. Like, everything he touches, I'm just
Gold.
like, sign me
Absolute
up.
gold.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I wasn't too I wasn't on board originally with kind of like Jojo Rabbit, because like
It's a tough thing to sell.
it's weird because like it's like, I don't want to say it's glorifying Nazis, because it's definitely not doing that, but it puts them in a different light than the ultra disgusting whatever people that they were during that time, right? So like I'm a half Jewish, so like so I have like my reservations about watching that kind of stuff. I actually watched it on a flight home. I loved it. I thought I was
so good.
It's so smart. He's so smart, and that's one of the things that I really loved about about him is that he's good at what he does as storytelling and how he does that, and he's super smart. It's very fun.
It's funny because when I thought about making this my movie and coming on, I was like, I know people are going to see this, go and watch it, and just be like, I don't get it. and there's nothing wrong with that. And I explain to people, like, if you're expecting Farrelly Brothers level comedy, this is not what it's going to be. Ben Stiller is not getting his scrotum stuck in a zipper. Like,
Beans and Franks are not happening.
I laughed at that scene for days. For days. Yeah. Like, it was, I would just, like, 3 days after I saw that movie, I'd be like,
But this movie does have those like similar moments that are like that, I'll say, for sure. So what I want to do is we're gonna try this again. We're gonna go take two on. We're gonna show the trailer of the movie for What We Do in the Shadows. So if people maybe after listening to the podcast or whatever get excited about it, want to check it out, we can give you just kind of a brief overview of that. So give me a second we're gonna cue this up. And then kind of go from there. We're going to share this screen. There we go. Let me know if you guys can hear that in the chat, all right? Let me know if you guys can hear this in the chat.
Let's go! It's been like this the whole time, Deacon, on dishes, and it still hasn't moved in 5 years. You're a cool guy, but you're not pulling your weight in the flat.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that I'm cool.
No, that's not the point, though.
Yeah,
You're missing
I
the
know.
point.
Not a
I know.
flat meeting about how cool you are.
When you get 3 vampires in a flat, obviously there's going to be a lot of tension.
Viago was an 18th century dandy.
A ghost cop. Vladislav is a bit of a pervert.
This is my torture chamber.
Deacon,
I love him so much.
he's so good.
to pay rent, but I don't.
The trouble with being a vampire is you have to be invited in.
Coming to the bar, $4 is water.
Will you invite us in? We need some fresh blood.
Hi, my name is Nick. I've been a vampire for 2 months. My friend Richard will invite us in.
Gentlemen, you are most welcome.
Nick is so much fun.
I'm a vampire.
Such a dick.
Nick, why don't you use the front door?
You want to draw attention to this house,
Got a whole documentary crew following you around.
You let a vampire hunter into our
I
house.
don't let him in, I just gave him my email. He doesn't
Kill you! I'm already dead! You will not eat the camera guy, maybe one camera guy.
There's Reese Darby right there.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I love it. I love that scene.
Hey, don't swear. What are we?
Werewolves, not werewolves.
Werewolves, not swearwolves.
When you're a vampire, you become very sexy.
Oh my goodness.
It's almost obviously it's not it'll never be the level of Monty Python. But if you watch like The Life of Brian, it's not like rip-roaring slapstick
Yes.
toilet humor. Like you have to pay attention to the dialogue and see the cynicism and the cleverness.
There's a lot of like subtle like things in there that are just like off, like response, like call and response almost things that happen in this movie that if you're not paying attention, you're gonna miss a lot of it.
Yeah, for sure. And yep,
Swagging it out right here. I love it. He's wearing a werewolves, not swearwolf shirt. So good. So obviously, guys, this is what we're talking about. It's on the title. It's on the description. It's on everywhere. About 5 different things. You know, is the movie we're talking about. What we do in the shadows. Now, do you have like some fun facts from after watching the movie and hearing about it that you after like maybe digging a little bit or just coming across these things you're like, wow, I didn't know this. That people that have seen it or are now going to go back and see it and watch it could be like, oh wow, that's cool.
I think with the biggest thing and it's kind of hard because I picked such a new movie, and I mean it is 10 years old, but with older movies, the stories come out from the movies 20 years later. So there's like, now with a movie that the production and everything is kind of right out there for everybody to see, there's not a whole lot of that. What there is though is, like I said, they made the original movie and it did okay, same cast, come back 10 years later, make it a super success. And then they go and they make the TV show. And the TV show on FXX, I dare say, is as funny as the movie, if not funnier. And it's for a few reasons. One, Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement stayed on board as like producers and directors. But they've brought in one of my favorite actors, comedic actors, Matt Berry. Okay. I don't know if Matt Berry is so ridiculously funny. He's from the IT Crowd and Toast of London. But he comes in as a vampire, and there's a couple other relatively unknown actors playing the same situation, but in Staten Island. Then they start bringing in the guests, and they brought in so many, but I don't want to spoil season 1's finale, but let's just say they get almost every single person who's played a vampire on screen, except for a couple big ones, to come back as that vampire on What We Do in the Shadows. It's so ridiculously funny.
So I haven't seen up until this point. I hadn't seen this movie. I just hadn't seen it, and I hadn't seen the TV show either. But after watching this and talking to you about it, I definitely want to check out it out because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, the TV show goes down a couple other roads that the movie couldn't, because the movie it's got to have introduction, set the scene, and even though it doesn't really have a typical like crescendo and whatnot, it does sort of follow like your standard plot of a movie. The show obviously has completely different ideologies, so they brought in Mark Hamill as a recurring character. It's so ridiculously
Does he play himself, or he has like a different?
No, he plays a vampire. But I don't want to spoil too much. The surprises on the show when certain people like Haley Joel Osment shows up to be a familiar, which is like a vampire slave, but he ends up getting turned into a zombie and going crazy. I can't even start to. It's 2 seasons deep, and it's the same kind of humor. Like if you've got somebody talking to you while you watch the show, it's not going to be funny. You really have to sit down and listen to it. Noel Fielding. Yeah. I'm surprised Noel Fielding hasn't been on it. Love him too. I love the Mighty Boosh.
In checking out like some of the stuff that was available to find out, like I love digging deep into like the behind the scenes stuff as to what happened. Is there like some kind of production snafu that happened or this or that? That there is like 125 hours of this film that was shot just for this film. And there's 3 different versions of this film that was completely shot and edited. So they edited this movie's like the runtime on this movie is not very long. It's like 90 minutes. So what what it took them almost over a year to be able to kind of edit down the 125 hours of film that they had, because there was like a more serious one, then there was like an even more like comedic driven one, and then there was a kind of an edit that was like right down the middle, and that's kind of where they landed with like what the release was.
Yeah, I didn't find that much of it. I actually looked, especially after last week when I was like, well, I'm going to do some digging because I don't want to be the one that's like, I don't know. Let me pull up YouTube. Shots fired, Billy. Shots fired. No, I mean, yeah, so we love them. We tease because we love. And if you guys have figured out one thing, the more I get to know people, the more I bring them into my circle, the more I razz the shit out of them.
Oh, I know. I get plenty. It's fine.
But I mean, I think the thing is for most people coming into this movie is obviously the connection with Taika Waititi. And like, if you've ever seen Thor Ragnarok, you get an idea of his abilities as a director. And if you find the New Zealand thing funny, and as a DJ, I do, because if you remember, all the original Serato videos were narrated by somebody in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And the little things like they don't say, so they call turntables decks, but they don't say decks, they say dicks.
Yeah.
So the videos are always like, plug your dick into the back of the mixer. And you're just like, what?
What do you say?
So seeing, like, if you guys remember the rock creature from, I forget his name, from Ragnarok, that's Taika Waititi's character. And it's just like this mild-mannered, you know, New Zealand character.
Yeah.
So I've always had this thing for both English humor and New Zealand humor. So that movie just, man, it's...
Yeah.
My wife and I actually watched it again last night because I was like, let's watch it one more time, just because I want to have it fresh. And it's to that point now with me that I know everything that's going to happen, and I know every line. And it's become the Holy Grail for me. Like the Holy Grail, I know every line, every scene, you know, and obviously the original Holy Trilogy of Star Wars movies.
You know what I love is I noticed where they were before. I was paying attention to obviously watching the movie, but I knew exactly the location of where they were when they were going and walking out in the street. And there's a district it's in Wellington, New Zealand. I know where it is. I knew exactly the bar district that they were walking up and down and filming that part, because there's been these like random videos on Facebook that have popped up, and they're like drunk reaction videos, and there's people out there, and I could see that whole street, and I was like, I know exactly where they are. I was like, they're in fucking Wellington right now, and it's just so random the way that shit goes down. And they're actually like all the places that they were going to and filming and trying to get invited in to, because that's the thing is like these three guys are like single guys and want to go out for a night on the town, but the vampire rule is you have to be invited into a place. So they're outside bars where there's bouncers and things like that, and they want to come in, and he's just like, they're like, can
you invite us in? He's like, yeah, you can go in. Yeah,
you
but
can go in.
Can you invite us?
But you need to invite us in.
It's just hilarious.
One
of the cool things, actually, now that I think about it, I did watch a couple like interviews with the guys, and in the original shoot, when they do that scene walking through Wellington, in the original one, they were getting chastised by all the drunk Wellington people, like calling them all kinds of, you know, gay slurs.
Heckled, yeah.
And they were like, this is perfect. This is exactly what we want. So when they went to reshoot, it was 2010 or whatever, and the world had matured a bit. So they're walking down the street dressed as they're dressed, waiting for these Wellington drunk people to start heckling them. But society has changed, so nobody was giving them any shit. They're just like, oh, they're some weird guys. So that guy that yells at them was an actor because they couldn't get
someone to actually like do it raw, so they could be like, hey, you signed this waiver right here. We're gonna put you in a movie. Like it just didn't happen.
It's too funny.
What I loved about this is like a lot of this like humor and like the scene structure and everything for this movie was like mostly improvised.
Yeah.
Like Jermaine and Taika like had this whole, you know, outline of what they wanted to do, like pages and pages and pages of scripts and everything like that. But like they didn't let anybody really in on it. They're like, you know, they're setting up the shots for the blocking and doing that or whatever. Then they're going to just be like, all right, well, this is the kind of thing. This is kind of what we're going to do. This is, you know, and then we're going to go from here to here. And this is like the conversation, kind of what they want to have. And then like go just to like let that like natural kind of shit happen. I love when that happens.
And the fact that I mean, I know the cameras, the trick is you always shoot the guy receiving the reaction over the shoulder, but how you didn't even catch a snicker out of some of those lines. Like, you know, there's a couple ones that poke up and he's like, you know, why do you eat virgins? He's like, well, you know, I think we eat virgins because we think it sounds cool. Plus, it's always nice to know, like, if somebody offered you a sandwich, wouldn't you be more interested in eating it if you knew someone hadn't already fucked it?
It's so good. Oh, man. Good. It's like those Jermaine Clement, right, in that movie is like, he's by far like my standout obvious favorite. I love the stuff that he does. He's amazing. In that FX show that he was in, even in like, you know, the Disney movie where he's like a big giant crab. Like he was in absolutely brilliant. Moana.
The horrible Men in Black. He played like the main bad guy in Men in Black 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was on the Marvel show on FX, Legion.
Yeah.
And he played like a weird 70s version of himself. Obviously, Flight of the Conchords, he's amazing. But yeah, so that whole clique, it's kind of like when you watch something with Silent Live character people, you know, like if Will Ferrell's in it, then these actors are going to be in it too, even if in a supportive role. So when I watch that, I know, like when I saw Rhys Darby show up, I'm like, I'm waiting to see the other guy from Flight of the Conchords, even though we didn't. But the werewolf vampire interaction is just, he's just such a funny actor. Like most people know him from, if you haven't seen Jumanji, the new Jumanji, he plays like the
Nigel.
Yeah,
he's the NPC. He's like the non-player character that like invites you into the game and like tells you where to go and is like, Dr. You know, Bravestone, welcome to Jumanji. Like he's like that intro character that you see. And so like that's the guy. He is the pack leader of this group of werewolves in this movie that the the vampires have like beef with.
What's up, Bobby?
Bobby Promo. Hello, sir. We're gonna have you on this show, Bobby, because you've got stories and stories for days. Love to have you for sure. Any other thing? Oh, and there was also going to be speaking of like where we are with the werewolves and stuff, the idea that there was going to be a sequel for that movie, like the sequel to this movie was going to be set around that pack of werewolves, and it didn't. I don't think it caught enough steam, and then they kind of parlayed that into this now, like the TV show instead.
Right, which is weird because if you look at how many awards the movie won, you would have thought there would have been just legions of
people were
studios
lining up to do it. Yeah, right.
Like, hey, like you guys got the hot hand. Obviously, Taika was on the cut. They could have never known that, you know, he did that Beyond the Wilder People, which is kind of like a deep, thoughtful movie, but it's a good movie. And of course, Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit. But before that, the only thing you knew him from was Green Lantern. He played Ryan Reynolds' friend,
sidekick guy.
Yeah, so
the guy in the chair. He plays guy in the chair for Ryan Reynolds, pretty much.
And what's funny is like it's funny you see him now. He looks like a different person.
You wouldn't even recognize him anymore.
And of course, he did 2 episodes of The Mandalorian.
Yes.
So I mean, you would have never known that in 2010. How could you? It's just unfortunate that we didn't get more, or even like you said, a sequel with the werewolves, because I would have loved that.
I think so too, especially because like just see with that same style, that same, you know, mockumentary thing just kind of flipped on its own to let them go more into the, you know, the etymology of where they come from, or like why they're werewolves, not swearwolves, and like when they're chaining themselves to the like
trees,
the trees to not hulk out, you know.
Yeah, just Declan, don't put yourself that little tree. You know how big you get to a bigger tree. And then the guy has the number lock. A number lock. He's like, well, why'd you get a number lock? Well, last time I had a key and I lost it.
Oh man, it's just so personal, but then like the fantasy element is it's just well played, so well played. So let's move into like one of the things that I like to do is, I want to remix the cast, right? So we want to go ahead and we want to recast this movie. Normally we would take, if we're talking about an older movie, that we would go in and talk about, if they make it in 5-10 years from now, who are the actors that we see playing these parts. Being this is a relative new movie, I want to literally flip the script on that and go backwards. So what about if we're making this movie was made in the late 80s, early 90s, around this time? Let's have some fun with kind of recasting this movie to try and see who we think the actors would be for that.
The 80s staple, when we talked about this, my mind immediately went to two people, Tom Hanks and Pee Wee Herman.
Really?
So Pee Wee Herman's already played a vampire. We know he has those chops.
It's true.
Tom Hanks in the 80s hadn't gone down that road yet. He was still kind of comedic. So if you could get him between The Burbs and Castaway, like that time when he was like switching. So I was like, Deacon, I think Paul Rubens could probably play Deacon. And then Yargo would be Tom Hanks. I had trouble with Vlad. I was trying to think of who's a husky, good-looking,
Vladislav,
sexy but not a sex symbol kind of person. I really couldn't come up with that. My mind briefly went to like Gerard Depardieu.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because he's like a big, hulky guy,
stockier guy,
and he's a lot. He's actually, I didn't know this. I mean, I know it now, but I remember the first time I heard like he's a sex symbol, and I'm like, really? apparently he is. But
okay, we're not gonna kink shame anybody on this show,
John Cusack, that's a good one too.
So he totally is a sex symbol. Whatever floats your boat.
He's my sex symbol.
So that's you just fired away three real quick. So I'll go back. I'll go like for Vladislav. So we're talking like Jermaine Clement's character, right? And I'm gonna kind of flip the script on it a little bit, but these three main vampires are all derived from source material. So what I want to do is cast the source material as the actors in this movie. So Gary Oldman, Vladislav, because that character, Jermaine Clement's character, is based off of Gary Oldman's Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I want to cast him as that. That would be my first cast.
And then,
so for Viago, for Taika Waititi's character, his character was based off of Brad Pitt. Well, technically his character is based off his mom. Like he took a lot of mannerisms.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
But his character was based off the guy in Interview with a Vampire, Brad Pitt's character. Mm-hmm. So not Lestat and Tom Cruise, but we're talking. His name escapes me at the moment. But Brad Pitt's character in Interview with a Vampire. So I'm going. Well, let's go and do that too. So I'm down with that. Even he's super pretty. So like the casting between like the direct reflections of that. But
Louis,
Louis, there it is.
Don't make me do this. I cannot. That's a line from that movie.
Love it. Young Kirsten Dunst in that movie as well.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the source material for that. And for Deacon is Kiefer Sutherland's character in The Lost Boys. Mm-hmm. So like that's all, within that 8 to 10 year time period, we can get all those guys.
Could you imagine if we went back to 85 and it was an unheard of thing back then for movies to cross over? You would never see kind of like Glass and the M. Night Shyamalan like trilogy. You have Bruce Willis came back and all that. That never happened in our day. I think if that happened in our day, that would have been insane. Could you imagine if a comedy came out with all three of the actors you just said reprise their role in a comedic fashion? How insane that movie would be.
Yeah. And like obviously to me casting those three guys, it sounds super disjointed and doesn't seem like it would work. But to think about Kiefer Sutherland and like Gary Oldman going like full blown like comedy roles, you know what I mean? Like Gary Oldman to me is one of my favorite actors of all time. Point blank done send it. So like for them to do like straight up comedy roles, I think it would be hilarious to watch.
Oh, you know what? I did come up with a Vlad, and you know who it was? John Malkovich.
Okay.
And I always go back to what's that movie?
Rounders?
Dangerous Liaisons.
Okay.
Because he played like, it was that France in the 1800s sort of thing. So I can see him in those outfits. And you've seen him play that like dark character. Like not Con Air dark, but
Cyrus,
like
the virus.
He's been there before, and his diction and his delivery are very reminiscent of somebody who's been on the planet for thousands of years.
Yeah, I like that. That's not a bad idea. What do you think if they were we were gonna cast like Stu, who's kind of like the hero of this movie?
Yeah, but he's so quiet. I mean, so for those who haven't watched the movie, I'm not going to spoil too much, but he breaks through the barrier of like the vampires being stuck in their era, and he brings things to them like the internet, which leads to one of my favorite lines. Leave me be, let me do my dark bidding on the internet. What are you bidding on? Or when he's like,
he's
what's
on
this?
eBay, by the way.
He's on Google. He's like, you type in whatever you want and you'll find it. I lost a key in 1735. Put that in Google.
Near a lake. Find it. Yeah. Super good.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man.
I'm thinking like maybe somebody like Ian Michael Hall from like the 80s or something like that. That's like nerdish looking.
Oh, yeah.
Not like off to the side, but you know. But I don't want to say super like Breakfast Club kind of Ian Michael Hall because he's too young.
Early Rat Pack.
Yeah, like
Brat Pack. Sorry, not
that's
Rat
too
Pack.
young. But like before he gets to that weird show on the USA Network where he's like got a dead zone in his brain, like around right in the middle, like just hit that right in the middle or something. That's such a weird role. I feel like anybody could do it, but I gravitate in my mind to people who are a little bit thicker with like the wispy blonde hair. Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a whole lot of lines.
No, he doesn't. And what's super funny about that is that guy's not an actor. They literally brought him into this movie, and they say in his role in the movie is that he's an IT guy and like he works in whatever. But like that's literally what he did. He was a real life IT guy, and he told Taika just asked him to come and be in the movie, and said he would just give him like this. Like this tiny little thing, like off to the side, just a little cameo or whatever. He didn't be like he's one of the like driving things in this movie without obviously giving too much away, which is hilarious.
And then that just leaves, technically just leaves, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on his name. The dude that gets turned, Nick.
Nick. I had a really hard time trying to come up with someone, someone for Nick.
I was thinking Christian Slater.
Okay.
Because he's got to be kind of like arrogant and pompous, and wild. You know what I mean? He would definitely have to be like an '80s wild guy, or even like Rob Lowe.
Oh yeah. All right, I see that. What about that's a good idea. What about the guy that played? He was in Boy Meets World, like Sean.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's a good somebody that would pop up and you'd be like, who's that now? Oh yeah.
Remember that guy? Yeah, that guy. The guy played Sean on Boy Meets World. Whoever you are, sir, I'm gonna find your name out later. But you just popped right in my brain there for a second.
Matt Dillon, that's a good one.
Also good.
The girl from Boy Meets World is a full blown porn star now. So surprise, you guys who watched that.
Topanga? No,
the other one, the redhead, the one that came in later.
Oh, I don't know. Topanga was it for me. I was out later. Well, I wasn't watching that later.
I caught it a little bit, and it popped up on those Twitter like, here's what your favorite actors are doing now.
I'm such a sucker for some of those clickbait things. I feel bad. My phone's probably like calling Russia and doing all kinds of crazy shit right now. Awful.
Sean Hunter, good call, good job, Lady Rebel.
That's his real name.
Yep.
I thought that was his name in the show.
I thought it was Boy.
One of the things that I thought was the wildest about this movie, while we're kind of like gonna put a close to it, is that one of the fun things you see in the movie is like Taika standing in front of a mirror and you can't see his reflection. He's like, "Ooh, look, it's a ghost cup." Ooh. Like it's just super fun and like funny like that. There's a scene in this movie where they're at a restaurant and they're sitting at a restaurant and their reflections are in the table, but the VFX team spent 80 hours in removing all of their reflections from that one tiny little scene in that movie. They spent so long on that one little part to remove all the reflections to keep it like authentic, I guess. You know what I mean?
Well, because once a movie crosses a certain thing, it becomes a subject of scrutiny by fans, because people I know that watch this movie, people that watch this movie, nobody watches it once. Like most of the fans of this movie watch it constantly because they want that, oh, here comes that line, or here comes that scene. And they had to know that the vampire community would be like, we can't take this movie seriously. Like, one, who does? Two, like, I'm Twilight. Shut up, Nick. You're not so Twilight. Good. Who'd you tell? Well, I told this vampire hunter.
I like that he was able to kind of like, right, because I wasn't sure where they're going with that movie with them and him, with like bringing them over, the biscotti, like that whole scene is fucking hilarious. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I don't want to give too much away because we want you guys to go, if you haven't seen it, to go watch it, and if you have seen it, you already know obviously what we're talking about.
It is definitely one of those movies that if we have nothing but time, if you're in the realm where you have nothing but time, sit down and just take it in. Just make sure you're not distracted, because it is one of those movies that you have to pay attention and you have to look. Like I said, like Life of Brian, if you just watch it and you're not paying attention, is not that funny of a movie. But if you sit down and look at like the little tiny things that Monty Python's crew were smart enough or clever enough to put in and be like, that's really funny. Like, it's not in your face, Rowan Atkinson
right
being a clown funny. It is like really intelligently clever.
If you guys want to join the little live table discussion, we're going to kind of pivot to that in a few minutes. There's a link in the chat here. You could just need to be, on a web browser. You can do it on a phone. You can do it on a computer, no matter what it is. If you guys want to join the roundtable discussion, we'll kind of bring you on here. If you have seen the movie, feel free to fire away. If you haven't seen the movie and you want to talk to us about it, want to check it on, feel free to do so. Jump right in here. Yes, just make sure you have pants on. That's
Please.
Always a good thing. No one needs to see too hot for any kind of podcast. That's for
Too hot for Fader.
Too hot for Fader and friends. Yeah, we're not trying to do anything of that. One of the other things I loved about this movie, as we're gonna kind of like see if anybody wants to come join the roundup with us, is that ambulance scene where it is completely real. Like, that's a legit ambulance worker. Like, they all were a part of. Like, it wasn't like a movie set what's the word I'm looking for, Josh? Come on, help me out. Recommissioned.
Yeah.
Like a recommissioned ambulance, like a movie time ambulance. That was like a legit working ambulance. They when they go and attack, later in the park where the vampires and the werewolves start to square off and it gets really gruesome and gross. They weren't sure that they were going to keep these film scenes in the movie because they thought it may be too complicated, but they decided to film the scene last minute. They enlisted the help of a real ambulance crew and paramedics to like be a part and in on the scene. They were happy to be a part of the movie on the condition that they would have to leave immediately if like a real emergency would have had to happen. They're like, yeah, we're down to help out, love to do it. But if there's something for real that's happening and going on, we're gonna we gotta go. And when we go, we gotta go. Oh, Mr. 916, hello.
Hey.
How are you?
Hasn't seen the movie.
Hasn't seen the movie. That's okay. But watching the trailer, were you interested in kind of checking it out?
That's my vibe. Yeah, I'm way down. I love a mockumentary. Like, my favorite mockumentary to date is probably Fear of a Black Hat. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that one.
I haven't.
It's pretty amazing. But it's very much like the Spinal Tap, but with 90s rap as like the subject matter.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually really fucking amazing. I think my other favorite, that's probably my favorite one. But I've never seen this one. I really want to see it. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Do you put that over CB4?
I would put it over CB4 because it came out before CB4. CB4 kind of low key bit this movie.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
But I liked the parody in Fear of a Black Hat more than CB4 personally. But there was some pretty funny parody in CB4 obviously too.
Mm-hmm.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. Just chilling.
Yeah.
I saw a link and I clicked it.
The link in the chat, you clicked it, and now you're here, sir. I enjoyed our time together on last week's episode.
I was so underprepared after watching back on that on the YouTube replay, which actually is really good, dude. You put a extra little spice onto it. I noticed, and it looked really sharp. So
yeah.
I
So if you guys haven't checked that out, the YouTube channel is on, it's out there. So you can guys go make sure you search that, Fader and Friends, like and subscribe, all that stuff. But we've had Aiden Scott on so far. We had Billy Lane on last week, and we talked about Big Trouble in Little China. And then, all these, the little remix segments that we're doing, I'm making sure you guys know exactly what we're talking about with, as far as the actors go, by, placing them up there. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
I appreciate that. It's a learning process because your boy hasn't had to edit videos ever, but
me neither, really.
But
this whole
unlike this guy, like right here, who's been a video editor and whatever for like ever,
a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm trying to like not pick his ear off too much about like certain things, because I'm like, I figured this out now. I can do this now. I know how to move this shit over here, without doing too much. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a learning process for a lot of us.
Life is a learning process, right?
Yeah,
right. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
But I guess since what we do is content creation for the last almost year now, they're necessary skills in this world, right? So
thank God for tutorials.
Good on to you for like figuring it out and like moving with the times, because not everybody is.
It's true. It's very true. What do you guys got planned for the next this week?
I'm not here to plug my shit. I'm here to hang out with you.
Yeah, that was more for Joshua.
Tomorrow, I got my Vintage Friday stream at 7 p.m. And then Saturday Eastern time. Yep.
Yeah.
And,
here's the time zones, bro.
Here's a funny story. So I'm also part of a raid on Sunday called Raiders of the Lost Art, which is from DJs all over the planet. So much so that the creator uses UTC time. I didn't get that memo. Actually, I got that memo. I just forgot that memo. And I was ready to play at 7 p.m. when, in fact, my start time was 2 p.m. So at 2 p.m., I forget what I was doing, but my phone starts blowing up. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? And they all use WhatsApp, which is on like page 5 of my iPhone. So I'm not really getting those notifications. You're not getting the little bubble or whatever. Nope. And I'm just like, what's going on? And then Fever, if he's still in there, shout out to Little Fever, texts me. He's like, yo, you good? And I'm like, yeah, man, what's up? He's like, what time do you go on? And I'm like, 7. And he's like, I don't even think he wrote me back. I think he just went to the WhatsApp group and he's like, he had no idea he was supposed to play. So if you're a part of a raid with people from across the planet, make sure that you use Google. You can literally type, what is 2 p.m. UTC time?
Ask your phone.
Eastern. It'll tell you. So
I have the world clock in the app. I have different time zones set up so I can know that stuff.
Here's a pro tip, because I've been a part of a lot of international raids in the last few months. Some of them have had documents with localized preferences. So you can actually set up a Google Doc that shows the time zone for the region that you're registered in. And so when they're setting everything up, it's not, you don't run into that confusion. You can do a localized document.
I dig it.
Fever is here. He saw it.
Shout out to DJ Little Fever. He wants to come on.
Everybody makes mistakes. I'm only human.
We're gonna have him come on in a future episode for sure. He wants to talk about The Room.
Oh,
which is like
okay.
I know it. I know the internet's love and hate with it and everything, but I have not seen it. So I know a little bit, but I'm looking forward to getting to kind of know it. You guys got some movie cues that you're looking into getting into the next couple of days? What are you watching?
I want to watch Kong versus Godzilla whenever the hell that shit comes out. Or Godzilla versus Kong. I don't know which order it goes in.
Whatever way it happens, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Who do you think? Who do you got in a match between Godzilla and Kong?
Godzilla.
Yeah.
I think Godzilla smokes Kong. Right?
Godzilla's just. I mean, I'd put Godzilla against anybody of the same stature, and he'd probably still lose. He's just a big monkey. Godzilla's got freaking superpowers.
Right.
Depends on
Right.
If we're going mecha too, or we're just going.
Great. Can you imagine? I was so like I said in the chat, man. I was so happy with the last movie when they busted out all the like original creature double feature guys. I grew up watching those. Like after Shazam was a creature double feature. Mothra was this dude. Mothra. I said this in the chat. When Mothra showed up in that movie, I got watery eyes because that was my dude. Well, that was my dude. When I was a kid, like it became like not a joke, but it became a thing. Like Mothra was my favorite. I don't know why. He's a big fucking butterfly, but I was super happy to see him in the movie. And the way they did him, they made him so grand. And I'm like, oh, I'm not the only Mothra fan out there. Good to know.
Cool. How about you, Mr. Lane? You watching anything soon?
No.
That's not. I mean, Godzilla and Kong is not coming out.
I'm watching a whole lot of OBS screens and
Tutorials.
YouTube tutorials.
We all are.
I like that.
Oh, you know what tomorrow is?
Friday.
Episode 3 of WandaVision.
WandaVision.
So we're watching that.
So Joshua Carl and I have super late night tech sessions about all things nerd. So we're talking about like OBS and like all kinds of weird streaming computer shit, and then we go off and talk about comic books, and we talk about streaming like videos and like deep dives. Like we were up until like I don't know 3, almost 4 o'clock in the morning talking about like WandaVision on Disney Plus a couple of days ago. It's nuts. We went down a deep hole for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And what's just funny is like if nowadays I would put that conversation on my Facebook and be like, read it and weep, and there would probably be, if we were single men, girls being like, hey, that same conversation in the 80s is what kept me a virgin. Like, I remember, I'll never forget this. I'll never, ever forget this in my life. I was with one of my best friends senior year on the bus, and X-Men 1 was coming out, the gatefold one, and it was a bus, so there's mixed men and women, girls and boys, and I'm sitting next to him, and everybody's having a conversation. I'm like, hey, do you want to go to the shop today and get X-Men 1? He's like, shh. And I'm like, what? He's like, dude, don't freaking talk about comic books.
Salt in my game.
And I'm like, if a girl isn't down with X-Men 1, then she's not going to be down with me. This is a big deal.
There's a line.
There may or may not be a picture of me, my wife, and my daughter floating around the interwebs of us Halloween costume where I'm dressed as 90s cartoon Gambit. My wife is Rogue, legit like Rogue with the wig and the everything. And my daughter, who chooses to pick the villains almost every time.
Root for the villain.
Like, yeah, I'm going to be Mystique. And I said, yes, you are. And like opens up Amazon, orders blue bodysuit and paint. And she had the skull on top of her head. We go like, oh, geez.
That's amazing.
Like Halloween is like our time. Like she loves Halloween. So like we fall out with like a family costume. I love it.
I'm surprised we don't bump into each other at some of the cons because my kids always dress up. One of the big ones in Boston when my son was like 7, he went as Deadpool, but as you're well aware, there's usually like 75 Deadpools at the show. And he actually made their commercial because he was like, 3 feet tall and the Deadpool with the 2 swords and the guns and grenades and like the OG spandex outfit.
Yeah.
And
there's
then
like 5 different Deadpools. There's like the Deadpool and the Stormtrooper outfit. There's
endless. My favorite is the chef. I see him every year. He's the Deadpool outfit, but he's got on like an apron with a hat. Yeah, it's amazing. But then one year, the year I ruptured my Achilles, I was like, there's no way I'm not dressing up. So I went as Green Arrow. and I had the bow and basically like a beefed up Robin outfit. But of course, I also have a full blown official Jedi robe and that thing too. So my son and I went as 2 Jedis one year, of course. But the outfit that he did that really blew hair back was Damian Wayne, because he was like, I think maybe 10. And we built his outfit completely from parts. Like we took soccer shin guards and made them into like the gauntlets.
Yeah.
He got like combat boots, and we took a vest. We ordered like the official like Damian. We were sure to get the Damian Wayne R, not the Tim Drake or the the whole deal. And he actually entered the contest in Rhode Island.
He's talking about an iteration of Robin for the super non-comic book nerds that are here.
Half the people in here were like, what the hell?
Who is he talking about? If
Like
you
the
said
Wayans brothers?
Yeah. Damon Wayans, is that what we're talking about? You got to break it, like
Yeah.
you just
I
went
forget.
super deep for a second.
I forget. Like if you say, I should have just said Robin.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can't, because Damian Wayne is a completely different Robin.
Yes,
Yeah.
we got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understood, but I want to make sure that
For the chat-
we didn't lose everybody.
For the chat, Damian Wayne is actually Bruce Wayne's son, hence the namesake. But he is a bastard in the best possible way. He's such a dick. It's amazing.
I went to the last Comic-Con we went to. Me, the wife, and the kid dressed as my daughter dressed as Spider-Gwen.
Nice.
My wife went as Doc Ock, and I went as Miles. And like Into the Spider-Verse, we all did that together. It was a lot of fun.
Nancy's gone. So the last couple of years, she's gone as the villain from. Oh my God, I know she's listening to me right now, going, I can't believe you're forgetting the name of the character.
She's in the chat right now. She sees you.
From Umbrella Academy.
Okay.
She's a woman that wears like the steampunk kind of outfit with the umbrella.
Yeah.
She I forget her name. I'm sorry, babe.
Is
Oh yeah, that's right. He was Martian Woman
Is
character
it
too.
V or M or is it what's something? I forget what her name is too. I love that show though.
Yeah, she went as that one. The Handler. Thank you, babe. I couldn't remember. She's gone as that a few times as well.
That's cool. Awesome.
Nerds.
All right, Mr. Lane, I'm gonna kick you out of here in the most loving way possible.
See you, Billy.
Appreciate you. Thanks for
I called
jumping on.
and I clicked it. I ended up in here. I don't know what happened.
Thanks for coming on the round table, brother. I appreciate you as
I got
always.
fished.
Bye.
Bye.
He thought we were going to be talking about real cool OBS stuff, and then
Yeah.
we hit him with the nerd shit, and he was like, Damien who? What the hell? What the hell are you guys talking about?
Yeah, if we would have went Damon Wayans, he would have still been on board. But he was like, Damian Wayne, what is that? He's like, I gotta go, guys. I gotta go. I'm too cool for this shit.
Man, and maybe Nancy remembers. My son actually hit one of the Comic-Con people with a line when he was when he was as Damian Wayne. That was like, as a dad and a comic nerd, the fact that he said what he said, babe, do you remember what he said? It was something like Batman came up to him and said something, and he said something back in character, and the dude was just like, and it was like a dick moment, but I can't remember what maybe she'll put it in the chat, but it was
that's
it was
awesome.
so good.
I don't know why we haven't. I haven't actually gone to the Boston Comic-Con. I go to the ones that end up happening in Connecticut and Rhode Island, and I'm usually like DJing the after party. Like I've done that for the last few years.
I've been trying to crack that egg in Boston for quite a while, and I don't even get a response. And I'm like, dude, I'm one of you. I got venues.
I am a nerd. Love me.
Now Nancy said to check my phone, so
Which is fun is like through DJing at Comic-Con.
yeah, check that.
Oh, sick.
Hold on.
Yes. Look at him. Oh, the mask and everything. That's legit.
Yeah, that's actually an official mask from like this mask designer who I found on the internet.
That is super dope. I like that. I don't know where I would be able to even find like the shit that I was doing. But what I was saying is through the Comic-Con and DJing the Comic-Cons and stuff, I was able to bring, I started in March broadcasting that, I was on Twitch and, doing this and streaming. One of my mods, who I don't think she's here because she's like a college professor, Resmira, you know her. She's stops through in your chat and everything else. She and Srothy, to another person that represents big time in our chat, they work like during the Comic-Con and stuff like that. So that's how they found out about me. And then they were like, I got them to like come onto Twitch and like start hanging out in the chat and stuff. So it's cool the way that shit
nice.
is all work together. If we're trading picks, I'll do one. Hopefully mine was. This was like a few years ago, but if you can see.
Oh, nice.
The family. I won't be able to get.
Is that Rocket? Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's my daughter is Rocket holding a Groot, a little baby Groot. My daughter is sorry, that's my daughter. My wife is being Gamora, and I'm obviously being Star-Lord in that one. Super cute. It was a lot of fun. So your family like totally into like dressing up and doing all that stuff?
My daughter actually is blowing up on TikTok because of her anime and cosplay.
Cool.
Dude, she takes it to that level. Her TikTok and stuff, it's like the stuff you see actual cosplayers doing. Like she gets in full makeup and the contact lenses and the wigs and she just broke like 5K on TikTok. But the thing is, like she's in her own realm. Like I don't think she's done too many matter of fact, I don't think she's done any comic book characters. It's always some deep dive anime that makes my nerdish look like some real topical shit.
Like a pleb.
Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go Superman or Batman, and she's like, dude, come on. But she definitely does represent that side of the family very well. The rest of the family does too. My son's getting a little older. I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting away from that. Last Halloween or 2 Halloweens away, his name's Fred, and he went as Freddy, and my wife built him a full Freddy outfit because the joke is we actually lived on Elm Street and his name was Freddy, so it was kind of a no-brainer. But
did you build him like a suit that had the Bluetooth speaker inside of it so it could play like the theme song?
No, it didn't go down the street. Just getting that outfit in somebody his size was a challenge enough for my wife, I'm sure. But yeah, so we do go. I'm actually the one who doesn't go in as much as they do. They all always do. Me, not so much. I'm just along for the ride. I'm more like I go to all the.
You're the chauffeur. Yeah, you're the driver, right?
Yeah, I'm Alfred basically. I'm Fat Alfred.
Fat Alfred.
I'll go. It's the same thing every time. Like, oh, con's ending in 5 minutes. All right, I'm gonna go get the car. I'm gonna pull it around, and 9 times out of 10, everybody's wearing shoes that they shouldn't be wearing, especially my wife, and she's just done. She's done, and I know what that means. So I know to go get the car and pull it around.
All right, sir. Let's go ahead and wrap this up for today. Thank you so much for being here. Right now, I want to just give you the full complete window. Let these people know, that are watching either on the YouTube or the audio podcast that aren't here on Twitch, aren't following you on Twitch, where they can find you, where they can see you, and that kind of stuff.
Giving me the Sean Evans.
Yeah. Plug this camera. Wait, hold on. This camera. Go ahead. Make it happen.
You guys, my name is Joshua Carl, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to lock that name down everywhere. DJ Joshua Carl. YouTube, actually, YouTube might be Joshua Carl. Twitch, DJ Joshua Carl. Facebook, DJ Joshua Carl. Everything, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. I'm on Twitch 3, 4, 5 days a week. I'm actually starting to lean in a direction not terribly different than Brandon's. Not that I'm going to start a podcast, but I'm going to start implementing more of my personality and the things I'm into my shows. Meaning my comic books will come out, my stupid toys will come out. It's not going to be just DJing 3-4 hours the entire time. I'm trying to get more personable. I was a little hesitant at first because, like I said, in the 80s, it kept me away from being cool. And now that I know that I'm cool, like I really know that I'm cool, you guys can see the comics and the Legos and the Star Wars stuff and the Harry Potter stuff. I am a Ravenclaw, in case you didn't know. That's pretty much it.
You are cool, sir, and I don't care. I'll fight anybody who says otherwise.
Thanks. I appreciate it. At least I know I got friends that'll fight for me because I'm not fighting.
I mean, yeah, I have gotten a fight or two in my life, but I don't try to make it a habit. All right, thank you, sir. I just want to say once again, thank you so much for coming on and being our third guest. When I came up with the idea and opportunity, the guys like you and Aiden Scott and Billy Lane were like the first to jump on, and the fact that it's a learning process that we're kind of getting the ball rolling. I super appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking the time out, number one, but then two, telling us your story, because I want this to be more about I want this to be as equal part about the people as it is about the movie. So like, I'm glad that you're comfortable enough with sharing with some of your life with us and things like that. So thank you so much.
Oh man, I'm just humbled that you thought of bringing me into your circle. And like, they don't know this, but we know this. We've known each other probably close to a decade, if not more. Yeah. But we never really like rubbed elbows the way we have since March. And I just want to let you know, dude, I'm so glad that we've established this relationship.
100%. Yeah. We've always been like on each other's peripheral for a while. We've both been in the same, 3-state DJ market or whatever for forever. But all, with, getting to know you better and getting to know, Nancy and your wife, as far as over the last few months and the back and forth and the awesome discussions we had. I'm super thankful for COVID for at least that.
All right, brother. I was gonna say it costs the country 40,000 lives, but hey,
at least that, right? Yeah. Cheers. Yeah, I gained super cool new friendships. I've lost my business completely, and I'm stuck at home and unemployed. But I gained cool friendships that I'm gonna cherish and go with for the rest of my life. So go Pack, go! That's right, Nancy.
Damn it, couldn't make it the whole show without that.
Yeah, I figured. I figured she was saving it to the end. All right, thank you, sir. And
thanks,
we're going
buddy.
to sign out, and I appreciate you. I'll see you soon.
Later, guys.
All right. Let's go back here. Woo. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. That is going to kind of do it for us here, the Fader and Friends podcast. That was Joshua Carl. His info is right here on Twitch. If you're not following him, make sure you do so. He is a great DJ. He's super tech savvy too. A lot of his streams are like super intricate with, they incorporate a lot of interactivity and that nerddom that I'm excited for him to kind of, let the curtain open a little bit more on his nerddom, because he's super knowledgeable about a ton of stuff, as far as everything goes. So next week, our guest is going to be Neil Jackson, and we're going to be talking about Donnie Darko. Neil Jackson is a New York DJ by the way of California. He just recently started a coffee company in quarantine called Beans, Rhymes, and Life. That's his morning show that he does and streams on Twitch. We're going to be talking about Donnie Darko. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but it's such a dense movie to talk about. So I'm super looking forward to it. And then we're going to go and, obviously open up the roundtable discussion. If you guys are, want to become a part of it, you're more than welcome to, make sure you guys hit up all the socials. I'm at DJ Darth Fader on everything. You can find Fader and Friends on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Please like and subscribe whenever you can. That helps us grow the channel. That helps us, start to reach more people. And I've got, a lot of guests down the pike from all over, all different walks of life. So I'm super excited that you guys are on board and are enjoying this with us. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you. And I will see you guys next time.